I feel like honestly, that's one of the ways of doing it, just getting rid of things that don't align with what you're trying to accomplish. And it's tough because it's like some people see it as like getting rid of fun. But I mean, like, how much fun is going nowhere?
In this episode, I talked to Adriell Mayes, aka Dre, about how he went from nothing to a fitness business making close to $1 million a year, over 700,000 followers on social media, and multiple shout outs from Joe Rogan. Dre credits his massive success to one thing: his relationship with reality. So that's exactly what we're going to dive into on this episode. We talked to Dre about his relationship with reality, how you can change your relationship with reality and leverage that for greater success, what's holding most people back from living the life they want, and much more. Dre doesn't do many podcast interviews, and the few he did are only focused on fitness. This is one of the first interviews he's done on how he's reached the level of success he's achieved, and you can too. So this is an episode you're not going to want to miss. And one note, thank you to all the listeners out there. I appreciate all of you, and you're the reason I do this. And for anyone listening who's not subscribed, please take 3 seconds and hit subscribe. It means the world to me. All right, now without further ado, let's jump in and enjoy. So earlier I was checking you out on social media, and while I was scrolling through your content, it's pretty clear that you're killing it at life, man. You're in sick shape. Between Instagram and TikTok, you have about 700,000 followers. You've built a massively successful fitness business. Now, I know in the past when we've talked, you mentioned how a lot of your success comes from your relationship with reality. But the thing is, a lot of people don't necessarily have the relationship with reality that you do. And a lot of people have different definitions and perspectives on reality. So I wanted to see if you could tell the listeners a little bit about what reality means to you, your relationship with reality, just any thoughts on reality you have, because I think this will help the listeners start to see the same success that you do.
For sure. And I guess to kind of give kind of like raw perspective is kind of just like always being honest with yourself about pretty much anything that you're dealing with, always analyzing and overanalyzing different situations for what they are and not really ignoring like the truth of a lot of situations. Like that's a big thing in society. We don't really like facing the truth because of how sometimes it may make us feel, or it forces us to do things we don't want to do. So a lot of times people just completely avoid it. So really having an honest relationship with reality allows you to face your truth. So now you can either change it or do whatever you need to do to move forward. And that really applies to like all walks of life, where there's your fitness journey, relationships, any type of personal, professional life things you're dealing with. You always need to know exactly where you are so you can analyze and figure out where you're trying to go to next. And I always found through myself and other people, we always avoid it, and it puts us on different paths in life that we wouldn't be on if we would have just faced the truth in the beginning. So having an honest relationship with reality is really huge, and I wanted to do the first episode on it because I feel like it's the start, it's the beginning of a journey for a lot of people. So I wanted to be able to highlight how you can kind of approach it and kind of help yourself to be better about acknowledging where you are in life and how you got there and how you're going to get out of it.
You make such a good point, man, because we all have this idea of the person we want to be in life. And the thing is, you're either taking action towards it or you're not. Now, if you're in touch with reality and you're being honest with yourself, you'll know if you're actually hitting your goals. But the thing is, a lot of times we may either intentionally or unintentionally deceive ourselves. We're going to tell ourselves, oh, I'm killing it, I'm crushing it, I'm hitting my goals. But the truth is, we're not making as good progress as we think we are. I know that you and I have talked about one example about when you were a trainer and some of your clients were kind of forced to face reality. I want to see if you could talk about that.
Yeah, so the biggest thing with being a trainer is obviously we get a chance to like help people kind of become a new person. But in the beginning of that, you kind of have to show them who they are now. And one of the biggest thing we would do with people, we would have to put them through like a assessment. And part of the assessment is to have them get on the scale and see what they weigh. And for those people that had weight loss goals, they always feared seeing what was on the scale. It was like the biggest fear to them. Like they did not want to almost like face the reality of what the scale was going to say, because it was going to show them the decisions they've made over the past 6 months to a year. But that step needed to be taken so we could get to the next step of whatever else we were going to do. So it was just trying to get them to understand like this is necessary, because now you've acknowledged that it was a problem for you, because you're here, you're seeing me because you want to change. But now we have to look at this piece so we can see what it is, so we can measure progress along the way. But it was so difficult for them because they didn't want to see it. And had they not done it with me, I don't think a lot of them would have actually looked at it. So it's just alarming how much people try to avoid that. And it's so necessary.
Yeah, man, it's funny because sooner or later you have to face reality in the face if you want to hit your goals. And you highlight a very good point, which is that facing reality, if you're not working towards your goals the way you want to, it can be painful. And that can often cause a lot of us to deceive ourselves as far as what reality is. So going to what you were saying about the importance of having an honest relationship with reality, I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit about maybe your thoughts on people deceiving themselves with reality, or like examples of people deceiving themselves with reality. I think the point here is to help people start to see the signs of if they're not having an honest relationship with reality, so that way they can start to take the steps to then have a more honest relationship.
Yeah. So I think when you have like you have goals and you have like inspirations of doing certain things, and you're constantly checking in with yourself about, are you making your way to that goal, or how are you doing on the journey of that goal, and you're constantly checking in, and you're always understanding like where you are. A lot of times we just get so stuck in the rut of the journey of what we're doing, and we're just constantly, days become into weeks and weeks become into months, and we just been doing the same thing. We never really check in to see have we really made any progress, because we just stuck in the rut of doing what we've been doing. So a lot of times people, they have no clue where they are on their journey, or they've forgotten that they had the goal, or it just seems so far out of reach that they just completely forget about it. Another example you see it in is with people with their health. Like people also like fear doctor visits. People don't want to go to the doctor so their doctor can tell them, or they say to them like, oh, your blood pressure is high. But the issue is whether you go to the doctor or not, like your blood pressure is going to be high. So you might as well go and have them tell you this, so now you can take the necessary steps. But some people just won't go because they don't want to hear the news. But if you think that there's news, then there's probably news, so you need to know. So because you know you're not doing something that you should be doing correctly. So it's a lot of instances when people just don't. It's the doctor visits, the dentist, all the stuff that we've been labeled to like fear are all supposed to be just like checkups to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. But we label them as like such a fear tactic of, we don't want to do it. Like, I hate going to the dentist. Why? If you've been brushing your teeth, then you wouldn't have an issue going to the dentist, because it's going to be simple. They're going to just clean and you'll be on your way. But if you haven't, then they got to poke around and do all this other stuff that you don't want them to do. So it's honestly, it's just those things that we found and we labeled them as like tedious along the way are supposed to be like just common things of life, and we just avoid them.
Yeah, I pick up on a few really good nuggets here. I think one of the main ones is regular check-ins can be a massive opportunity for you to see how you actually are as far as facing reality, where a lot of times if we're just going about our day-to-day life, we're not stopping to see if we're progressing towards our goals, if we need to make changes. So number one would be to set aside time to do regular check-ins, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. I think that's one of the main points. The second thing I'm picking up on is if you have a sense of fear or pain as far as these check-ins go, take that as a sign that the chances are you might need to make some changes. And it's this fear and this pain that's holding a lot of us back. It sounds to me like one of the key mindset changes you've made is being able to take this fear and pain and push through it anyways. And I think if the listeners can spot this pain and just practice pushing through, that'll be a great opportunity for them to start to make better progress towards their goals. And then the third thing is related back to stepping on the scale. If you can get data in front of you, it's going to give you more of an objective view of how you're doing. It's easy for us to lie to ourselves, but when you're starting to see numbers and things like that in front of you, then that can give you a more clear picture of how you're actually doing.
Completely. And that's the main thing when it comes to like the data. And not all the time the data doesn't have to be 100%. It's just giving you something to go off of. But a lot of times people don't want to see the data. They avoid the data completely at all costs. And it actually costs them more by completely avoiding it. So that's what the whole having an honest relationship with reality is all about. It's just always acknowledging where you are, no matter what's going on. It could be good, it could be bad, and just embracing it so you can continue to move forward and not really getting stuck in the good or the bad, just being able to take it for what it is and move on to the next thing without it affecting you too long.
And that's a really good point too, where not getting caught in the good or bad. One thing that I really believe in, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Mm-hmm. So again, back to reality. Reality is reality. It's your brain that decides if it's good or bad. If you can separate your emotions from action, you'll be able to more objectively take action towards your goals. Yep. So related back to your example, people stepping on the scale, they see their weight is not what they want it to be. Now you could either just say, okay, it is what it is. Now let me improve this. Or you could start to get very emotional about it and get caught up in it. And then you're still going to have to take the action anyways. But now you're just beating yourself up for no reason.
And that's what you found. And that's what I was more interesting about it is when you finally got these people to get on the scale and acknowledge their weight, they were, well, most of the people I've worked with afterwards, they had this like motivation about them that they wanted to change it because now they knew what it was. They couldn't avoid, they saw it. So now it's like, I don't like that. Like, so now something switched in them that is going to carry for a while, or it's maybe something where you have to keep reintroducing it to them. Like some of them, after like a few weeks or so of months of doing something, we would put them back on the scale and be like, all right, how have we been doing? So now they would have to face the reality of the last few couple of months of since they started working with someone, and they will either see that they've been making progress or they've been doing their same stuff and they want to change. And it was more like in your face because these people were spending like thousands of dollars a month. So it was like, you're paying all this money, you might as well be like actually creating change and like helping yourself, because otherwise you're just wasting this money. So it was good in a way to continue to keep them accountable, because that's all it really is just being accountable for everything you're dealing with. Because a lot of times you see it where people get to a point where they feel like there's no return. Like I've seen it with people that come to me that's gained a lot of weight. It was like, I don't know how I'm gonna be able to lose this because they've gained so much, and they just feel like they've been to the point of no return. But along that way, they had no accountability for every step of the way where they were going. It was like, if you would have just held yourself accountable a little bit along the way, you would have never got to the point where you feel like you couldn't return. And now it's going to be a lot harder. You're going to have to really develop the confidence and to be able to go and do what you want to do as far as lose all the weight. So it's like holding yourself accountable, and not even a sense of that, because life has like a weird way of keeping you accountable, even if you won't keep yourself accountable. But it usually sucks when it comes from other people. So I just think people should kind of find a way to keep themselves accountable so you don't have to deal with like the backlash of what it actually gets you. Because there's consequences to all actions or no actions. Like there's a consequence for it. So if you live your life a certain way and you go down a certain path and you aren't doing the stuff you need to do, like there's gonna be some time for you to face all of those decisions. And I feel like the sooner you do it, the better you have a chance to actually changing it. So
Yeah, it's really funny because when humans are faced with a painful moment, we either take action and we face short-term pain but have longer-term gain, or we're scared of the short-term pain and we avoid it, such as the pain of not eating pizza. Like it's either quick pleasure or quick pain of me having to resist it. And human nature is just to shy away from the hard action. But the more we can reprogram our brains, the more we'll get the better results. Like one good point you made is we should really remind ourselves that I may be pushing off this pain, but it's going to only cause me even greater pain in the future, such as when you were saying people would work with you and then they wouldn't necessarily be getting the results they want. They keep pushing it off until eventually they hit a point of no return where they're really unhappy with their results. One question I wanted to ask you about or learn more about, when people hit this area of no return, is there anything you did or would help them with to kind of start to make progress again? What I'm wondering is how someone might go from a point of no return to start to make progress. And one or two things that come to my mind is just being able to focus on small baby steps.
Yeah, and that's honestly what it is. It's kind of like you got to work them backwards because certain things you deal with people, you want them to understand the big picture. But in this case, you don't, because it just seems so far and so big to them that you need to kind of condense it to get them to focus on one small step at a time and build up to be able to become someone that can accomplish the weight loss or whatever goal that they have. But it's going to take like some step by step to be able to build them into the confident person to be able to do these things, because it's a big task when you get someone that comes in that's already at that point. Is tough, and it's really a journey. You have to get them to understand it's a journey, but to really focus that much on the end result. Just focus on getting one step at a time throughout it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Emphasizing what you were saying, it's a journey. I think more people should start to have that in the back of their minds, because we all have these goals that we want to hit, and we see them as such a distant place. But the truth is, if you could just be in this moment, work towards a small progression towards your goal now, and then you keep doing that day after day, you're going to get there eventually. It's about being able to be more in the moment and actually take action versus just having this daunting fear in your head of how long it's going to take, how hard it's going to take, things like that.
For sure. And then the other thing I think people should do is like think about who you want to be and like how you want to live life. When you go to when you go to find trainers that you want to work with, you've already in your mind, you know what you want to do. Like you want to be a person that looks better, stronger, and better shape. So you already know that without telling me that. When you go to the doctor and the doctor you know you want to be a healthy person. You go to the dentist, you know you want your teeth to look better. Another example I would use is like, think about all the times where you have like high school reunions or something and people, they like lie about who they are now, what they're doing in life, but that's actually stuff that they want to be doing and things they want to accomplish and goals that they want to have achieved. So like those are the things that you should be working towards, because if you want to lie about them, it's something that's on your mind that you could have been working towards. So if you just take those things and work towards them, they could be who you become, and that's how you keep yourself in check. And I feel like that's why I think life has a weird way of keeping us in check, because we all have all these checkpoints where it's like, who are you? What are you doing? Like think about holidays when you go home. First thing your parents ask you, like, what's going on with you? Like, what's going on in your dating life? How's work? Like, and you either tell them the truth and you don't like the truth, or you tell them the truth and you're happy with the truth. But either way, you get a reality check of, oh, I'm not where I thought I would be, or I'm not where they thought I would be, or I'm embarrassed to say where I'm at. So it kind of gives you a reality check of, all right, well, I'm not there, but that's where I want to do, so I can kind of work towards it. So that's why I like that life has these like checkpoints of all these like different events, like weddings, all this stuff where you're going to see people that you haven't seen in a while, and you want them to think that you've like been crushing it and you've been doing great in life. So some people have to make up stories about who they are now instead of becoming that person. So when these things happen, that you can say, all right, I'm doing this now, and not to be like in your face, but to be actually proud of who you are and not have to lie about what you're doing or what you want to be doing. So like, that's why I like how life keep us accountable in some way. It either embarrasses you for you not doing what you want to be doing, or it kind of like, yeah, I'm doing good. Like, I guess I am doing all the stuff I said I was going to do when we last spoke, or when we last were talking in high school, or whatever it was.
Yeah, and one exercise people can do is like you're saying, we have all these events that come up in life: Christmas, holidays, high school reunion. The listeners and anyone else can really project themselves forwards and say, okay, when I see my family this Christmas and they ask me how my life's going, am I going to be happy? Am I going to be proud of what I say? Or am I going to have a little guilt? If I do, then maybe that's a sign that I should start working a little more towards my goals.
And you get those people where they realize something is coming and it's like a month. You're not going to live a lifetime or accomplish a lifetime of goals in that month. So you can tell these people about it. Like, you get those people that are like, oh, I have a wedding in a month. I want to rush to, at best, you're going to feel better. You might not make any changes, but you may feel better, which I think is better than anything, because you're going to start taking actions towards your health. You might not get that dream body you thought, but you also gave yourself 1 month. So it's like, what did you expect? Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, I really feel like it's something that people should really pay more attention to, especially if they're planning to make more change in their life.
Yeah, agreed. People should be working towards their goals, but also be patient. Like you said, don't expect a six-pack in a month, but know that that month of progress is tangible. It is something you should be proud of, and keep getting that next month and next month of progress. And sooner or later, you're going to hit the goals you want.
And even myself, like, I have a funny story. I feel like my reality check is so I had started working when I was working at Equinox. Working, building up, and there's a certain amount of work you can do and still be able to maintain your own health and your own like fitness journey. And I was so busy, I was helping people and I was ramping up, building my business up, that my workouts were falling and I had no time to really eat healthy. I was just more so just kind of going through the motions, building up my business. Days, like I said, days was coming weeks, weeks becoming months, and I was just doing the same thing, working 7 days, not really taking care of myself. And I wasn't gaining a ton of weight, but I was noticeably not myself. And I went home for Christmas, and my 7-year-old niece asked me, how could I be like helping people in training? And I was overweight. Obviously, she has no clue what she's talking about, but in her eyes, I looked different than what she was normally used to seeing me as. And for me, that was a reality check. It came from a 7-year-old, and kids are honest. So I was like, oh, she's definitely, but still, it's like that made me feel some type of way, but it also made me check myself and get back into the shape that I'm used to being in and start working towards actually being on top of my own health and helping people. But that was a reality check for me because, yes, I was going throughout life. I wasn't really paying attention to my own health because I was busy working. I was enjoying what I was doing, but I was missing that piece. So that was a reality check for me. And ever since then, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, I've been like constantly checking in with myself, constantly.
Yeah, related to the 7-year-olds, like one, I love how honest kids are. I wish more people were like that day to day. And it brings up a good point, which is that you should surround yourself with people who will be honest with you, because our friends know that even though it may hurt us in the short term, if they're honest, they know that it will help you become the person that you want to be. Like, I know I have friends that I love and I'm like, hey, they're not going to want to hear this now, but they're going to be grateful afterwards. So one thing that I can think that can also help you be accountable or keep you accountable is surrounding yourselves with people who will be brutally honest with you because they know who you want to be as a person. Related to that, I'm wondering if you have any other advice or thoughts on accountability and how listeners may be able to keep themselves more accountable.
I think that's a huge one. And I think for me, like I feel like I got a good amount of friends, but one of the reasons I feel like I'm not crazy about like being around a group of people because I'm honest about who I am, and I'm honest about, I'm not going to lie to you about who I think you are, because if you were my friend, I should be able to say to you whatever I think, being brutally honest. And I feel like that's a big thing, is having people around you that will tell you like, all right, like you're doing, you need to get your shit together. So it's not having that, you're kind of like doing yourself a disservice. Some people see it as, oh, I'm just keeping negative people away from me. But you also are keeping yourself away from the truth, because while it's good to have an honest relationship with reality with yourself, there's also stuff that people see that you don't see that could alarm you to something that's going on with you, or something they may have experienced and recognized and can give you advice on. But if you keep all those people away from you, it's hard to ever get that advice, because everybody around you is kind of just telling you what you want to hear. And I feel like a lot of people want those kind of people on them because they don't want someone to be kind of talking down them in perspective, I guess. But the truth isn't talking down. I feel like it's talking up, because it's giving you something that you can work on and really better yourself. So I feel like that's a huge one. It's like, I feel like that's the major one, especially because, I mean, human beings, I think sometimes we forget this, without each other, we don't really operate in this world. Like humans are here for other humans. So if we're not really using and helping each other, we don't really get far in life. So not having people around you to tell you the truth really doesn't benefit you, because now there's information that you won't look into yourself to find, and you don't have nobody around you to tell you, like, this is something that you should be acknowledging. So, like, that's really doing yourself a disservice, and it's not holding you accountable. So I feel like my friendships, the people I'm around, I can say that to them. And they know that about me, because I'm more brutally honest with myself than I am with anybody. So they see me hard on myself, and I'm very strict and narrow about how I handle things. So there's no way they can expect me to be soft on them about anything. But that comes with not everybody wants to be your friend when you're that way. You are seen as kind of like negative, even if, because sometimes your perspective is wrong. But I feel like it's hard to be wrong, especially when you're close to people, because you see it like all the time. Like you kind of experience it through them, especially if these people are some people you care about and you love. Like everything they go through, you go through as well, because you hear it from their perspective. So if you're hearing it from their perspective, you experienced it the way they experienced it. So you should be able to have advice on it, if I guess. But some people don't see it that way. They kind of just see it as like, oh, this person's negative. But it's also, there's some people out there that are negative. So you got to kind of really check to make sure your circle is people that will be trying to put you in a position to be better and not just kind of talk down on you. But once you have that, you got to be able to accept what these people say to you and take the criticism and use it to build off. Because otherwise, if you're not recognizing yourself and you don't have people around you that you are willing to allow to recognize it to help you to grow, then there's no way for you to actually really build from that.
Yeah, 2 points on that. One, you make a very good point, which is that when people are giving you advice, I think that you should be able to entertain the advice, see their perspective, and decide, is this something that applies to me? When someone says something to you that may seem negative, don't just get defensive. Instead, say, wait a second, is there any truth in this? And then you can decide if there's anything you could use to improve yourself and discard the rest. It shows a powerful mind to be able to entertain an idea and perspective without attaching too strongly to it. And then the second thing, back to blind spots, one analogy I like is blind spots. Cars have blind spots. And when you're driving in a car, you can't necessarily see everything. When you're driving yourself through life, you can't see your blind spots either. So you need friends who can pick up on them for you.
Exactly. And I really feel like that's like really been beneficial to me throughout. Like I feel like I probably lost friends because I'm like too honest about stuff. But when you become close to people, you don't want them to go through things, especially if you see what's coming. But sometimes you got to allow people to go through their own journey, because some people, they're just destined to get in that wreck, and you just got to let it happen, because they won't get that change until they experience it. And trying to prevent them from that is kind of really not helping them. So I guess there's a kind of like gray area with it, but you got to kind of like, I don't know, just fill it out. But that's the whole point of having being friends and being able to talk through things, because you get to have these experiences and deal with these things with people and not be scared you're going to lose the friendship by being honest.
Yeah, having people you can just have clear communication with, who you know will be able to call you on your bad habits and help you better yourself. Now, talking about being honest with reality, we talked about accountability. I think that's one of the main things there. I'm wondering if you have any other thoughts on how people can start to be more honest with themselves about reality, any ways they could start to have a more honest view, just anything on that general topic.
I guess I would say the main thing is, honestly, is just setting goals and always checking to see where you are on the journey of pursuing or accomplishing that goal. Like having like jobs do it. Like think about companies. When you work for companies, they have like yearly reviews and they show you what you've done over the year. If you've done good, you get a bonus. Like you done, like they have like weird things, weird check-ins with each other to show like, all right, if I do this financial goal at this point, I'm gonna take this vacation if I do this. So having that about like your personal life as well as your relationships, and really honestly just checking in with yourself, just having talks and keeping people around you that will help you check in and ask yourself the tough questions and ask people to tell you the tough questions and tough answers about what they think. Because a lot of times it's hard because you are like gentle to yourself. Some people, I'm not. I'm mean to myself. So I tell myself like the brutal, honest truth. But a lot of people are very gentle with themselves. So they tell themselves like the soft version of what they want to hear. So they don't really get the bold. And I'm one of those people that I don't think the truth can be told in a way where it's like gentle. Like I think sometimes it has to like really hit you in the face so you to know. Because if it's just gentle, it's just like, oh, that didn't hurt. Like I can't experience that again. So they'll go through it again, and it just constantly keep just tapping them on the shoulder instead of smacking them in the face. And then they understand, like, all right, this is what it is. So I mean, honestly, just being surrounded with people and just I feel like being an adult and just holding yourself accountable and just checking in.
Yeah, and I feel like you've really developed a rock hard mindset, strong discipline, and you have a lot of characteristics that people would like to emulate, work towards. Now, going back to reality, I know that a lot of times our past can influence our reality. When you and I have talked in the past, you mentioned how growing up you didn't necessarily have too much and that there may have been some experiences that helped you grow into who you are today. I'm wondering if anything comes to mind from your past that may have helped you turn into the successful person you are now.
I guess I would just say not really having like a fallback plan, like always having to have something work. It's like the stress of that alone will force you to create a strict and narrow like plan so you know like this works. Because if it doesn't, like I don't get to sleep at night. I don't get to eat. Like this has to. So that constantly makes you check in and make sure you're on the right path because you don't have the wiggle room to take the wrong step. So I feel like you kind of script yourself of, and I guess this what I've done for myself is I think I was like 23 or something. I started labeling things like as productive or non-productive or necessary or unnecessary. So I started eliminating all those things that I felt like were unnecessary, like as far as going out, drinking, hanging around certain people that I didn't feel like was good for my growth. And I found like I'd stopped running into issues with like accomplishing goals because I had no distractions. Like everything that was an issue from stopping me from doing stuff, it was no longer an issue because I eliminated it. So I was able to be focused and always on track. I was always on the right path because I had a clear mindset and a clear like way of thinking about where I was at because I had nobody to distract me or anything that I was doing that was clouding my judgment. Like I was constantly on my A game with thinking and discipline. So I feel like honestly that's one of the ways of doing it, just getting rid of things that don't align with what you're trying to accomplish. And it's tough because it's like some people see it as like getting rid of fun. But I mean, like how much fun is going nowhere? Like at some point you're gonna look and be like, all right, I had a lot of fun, but like I'm in the same place I've been in the last 3 or 4 years, and that's not fun. So it's like, all right, how do I start to have a little fun, but also like progress in life, because essentially that's the goal. Like, you have all the fun you want, but if you don't really get anywhere in life, at some point you're going to have to be working and struggling way longer than you wanted to. And I guess I just always had this vision of not having like my upbringing be what if I have kids, the future of them to have the experience. So I'm like, all right, I'm in my 20s, early 20s. I'm just like grind now. Like, work 7 days a week, no partying, no drinking, no nothing. Like, I'm working towards building something for myself. Because, I mean, some people just think, oh, I want to enjoy my 20s. And I was like, all right, your 20s are cool, but I want to enjoy my 30s and my 40s, because if you have to work like you worked in your 20s, and it's like you're not going to enjoy it. Like, what's the point of partying now in your 20s than working slavery 30s, 40s, 50s? Like, why? When you could just grind. Like, the most leeway you'll be able to make is when you're younger. When you're older, you're going to want to work less. So why you want to party now and then work? Like, no, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. So, like, start putting things in those categories, and you don't have to do it all at once. It's just year by year as you get older, and it happens for people without them knowing as they get older. It's just happened for me when I was younger, because I spent my childhood being without a lot of things I felt like was necessary for me to have. So once I was of age and able to obtain this stuff, I've always wanted to make sure I had it. So that required me making sure I was working a certain amount and staying focused on different stuff. So eliminating things that don't align with your growth is like huge. And it's tough for people, because sometimes people think like the party and all that stuff is aligned with growth, and it's not. That's aligned with like your right now, like you want to experience fun. But when you're 32 or 33, you're not going to be thinking like, I was so happy I went to that party at 24. So happy I drank all weekend for my whole 25th and 6th. Like, that's not going to matter to you. You're going to be thinking about how much money you have right now. Can you take care of your family? And if you're not in that position, you're going to think, I should have started when I was younger. I should have started when I was doing whatever, because now I'm in a position where I need all this to be happening. And it's tough now because I'm older. I'm doing a lot of different things are happening that's would have been a lot better to deal with when I was younger.
Yeah, there's so much wisdom in there that I want to unpack quickly. So one, tough situations can really catalyze your growth, forced you to grow at a young age, which helps you get the results you wanted earlier. So point one, if you're listening, if you can find ways to put yourself into make or break situations, you'll be forced to rise to the occasion and grow. Point number two, one of my favorite quotes by Anthony DeMello in his book Awareness, we don't grow until the suffering is strong enough. So sometimes you have to be faced with reality, and painful reality, if you want to hit the results you want and have enough pain to force yourself to start to grow. And then another point is, I couldn't agree more with what you were saying about hard work, where people don't realize, or people often don't realize, but hard work can be very fulfilling and actually a lot of fun. The problem is we're too used to our instantaneous pleasure of going out partying and drinking. But if you're able to remove that, you'll start to be able to enjoy hard work again. One analogy I think of is bananas versus sugar cookies. Bananas are sweet, but we don't often remember that if your taste buds are too used to synthetic sugars like sugar cookies. So the more you can remove this overly strong stimulus that comes with it's a double-edged sword. You're going to have some form of a hangover, or you're at least not going to feel as good if you were going to bed early and eating healthy. You'll over time be able to start to enjoy hard work, and fulfillment gives you purpose. It's one of the greatest pleasures in life once you can start to hone in on that. And then the last thing I just want to piggyback off of is, like Dre was saying, you should think a little bit about your future, where a lot of people are like, hey, enjoy your 20s, but you want to live a life you enjoy. You want to build a life where you can wake up every day excited to live this life. And by working towards your goals a little bit more each day, you'll start to be able to build the freedom into your life that you want, and you'll have an opportunity to do what you want, but also to have the family you want, have the free time you want, to be able to spend time with your loved ones and kids. So learn to enjoy hard work and think about the future that you want. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to miss out on partying, because I promise you, you can still drink in your 30s too. Don't worry.
And it's honestly just being a big picture person. Like sometimes people forget about the big picture because I mean, again, life is short, so it's like you have to have that bit of like I want to live for now, like because there's a piece of it that's important for you to embrace like right now. But if tomorrow comes, you need to be able to make sure you can provide for tomorrow as well, and that don't always happen in that day. Like a lot of people like to approach it as like I'll deal with tomorrow when tomorrow comes, which is great in a way. But now when you're trying to build a future for like a family or something, sometimes you have to have a little bit of like faith or expectancy of like if I see tomorrow, I'm gonna make sure I have this ready, but I'm gonna live for today.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing I try to really embrace is to work towards tomorrow as if you're going to live forever, but learn to enjoy today as if today is your last day. So learning to separate actions from emotions. If I'm working towards my goals, that'll get me closer to tomorrow, but I can try to separate my emotion and fully enjoy what I'm doing. When you're working on a task, it's up to you if you want to learn to enjoy it or if you want to kind of stress out about it. So learning to fully enjoy actions that will get you closer to your goals, I think that's one thing that could help people.
And it never stops. Like it's always, to me, it's always about building and evolving as a human. So it's like throughout that journey, it's an everyday thing. Like you're building momentum from yesterday to the next day. So if you're constantly living for today, you don't really get to take that momentum with you. Momentum is kind of everything that kind of carries you throughout life. If you're able to build, some people build wealth with like constant momentum of like financial decisions they've made or whatever it is, they're able to take that into their future, into their kids' future. So you got to be able to kind of build on the previous days, and a lot of that means you have to understand the big pictures of sometimes like you need to prepare for tomorrow because tomorrow may come and you need to be ready for it.
Yeah, and one thing you were talking about earlier, how life can feel short, and it reminds me of one book I love. It's The Shortness of Time by Seneca, and it talks a lot about how life may feel short, but it's long enough if you use it correctly. And the issue is that a lot of us may waste life. And it goes to what you were saying about boiling life down to its essentials. Again, another book I love, Essentialism. But the more we can remove the fluff, the more you can spend a full life doing what brings you the most value. And I think one activity that can be helpful for a lot of people is to, similar to check-ins, doing an audit of your life and saying, is this serving me? This Netflix show that I'm watching my third rerun of, is it really making me fulfilled and happy? Or even though working towards my goals may feel painful at first, is that going to get me closer to the life I want? So cutting out the fluff and really working towards the life that you want.
Yeah, and you gotta set goals. I mean, like some people don't have goals, so it's hard for them to kind of acknowledge and embrace what it feels like to cut things out that are unnecessary, because to them everything is necessary because they don't have anything they're working towards. They have their corporate job and they just show up every day, they do their thing, and they have no personal goals. So it gets kind of like blurry when you start telling them to like, because they're content with that. And that's kind of tough to get people that are content to see that even if you're content with the job you have, the financial situation, there's still more to life for everyone. Like there's always more. There's probably more if you're content with your financial situation. There's probably more you could be embracing on the health side, like in your fitness journey of being healthier. There's always going to be something for you to be improving. So you got to kind of just find what it is. It's different for everyone. It's just finding whatever it is that you need to work on, creating goals in that area, and be constantly working towards it. Because when that is the case, you can start to audit the things that don't help you, because if you figured the financial situation out, but you've been struggling in the health situation, it's because there's probably some things that you need to remove in that area to help you to be able to be healthier or be just a better person in the sense of taking care of yourself. So it's just honestly just figuring out what area of life am I completely avoiding the reality of what it is. And for a lot of people, I feel like it's the health one, because it's the biggest struggle now trying to get my parents who are 50 and 60-year-old to understand they still see working out as like a hobby or something that I do because I enjoy it. It's like, yeah, there's that piece of it, but there's also like the major piece of it of I want to be healthy. And it's hard for them to understand that because the society before them didn't always preach that as well. But now the data's there, like with the obesity rate and just health, and a lot of the diseases are caused by like just lack of exercise and poor eating choices. Like the data's there, and now the internet's there, so we also can just push it out and people see it. So it's like there's no way to ignore it. It's 2023. Like you know whether you are healthy or unhealthy before you go to a doctor. Like you know it. So it's like now people are forced to like really acknowledge that. So it's and it's tough though, like because you live your life your whole life a certain way, and now you're being told like this is wrong. This is wrong. Like you really need to change it. And some people they can't. They're just the reality of the situation they created for themselves. They don't have the knowledge, they don't have the finances, they just can't make it work. And that's why I like doing what I do, because I'm really trying to tap in and help those people, because those are the people that need it the most.
Yeah, man. There are so many people who will, for instance, with health, just say, oh, like I'm just too old. This is how I live life. And if you're listening, know that it's never too late to start. It's never too late to improve. Even if you don't get that six pack, you're going to be way better off if you start taking action today than if you just keep waiting. Because I'm going to tell you what, 10 years from now, you're going to be like, damn, I really should have started 10 years ago. And like Dre was saying with being content, so many people mistake comfort for happiness, and they're not the same. You're going to be comfortable, but you're going to feel like a lot is lacking from your life. And that's going back to the fulfillment and purpose, working towards your goals, growing. That's going to give you that purpose and fulfillment that makes you feel alive. And then one more thing, like Dre was saying about hitting your goals, creating goals, simple and easy are not the same, but it really is that simple. Pinpoint areas where you want to improve, make goals, small goals, so you can achieve them and get the dopamine hit and everything and track your progress, but make goals and then just work towards them. Making progress isn't necessarily that complicated, but our brain often gets in the way. Like, you shouldn't eat the pizza, but we'll often make excuses saying, oh, but I want to treat myself. I want to do this. You often know the answer, but your brain gets in the way. So like spot yourself, and this like awareness and being aware of how you live life, aware of your reality. That's one point that really hits home for me, because I think if people were just more aware of their day-to-day lives and of their reality, then they would see the answer in front of them and know what to do.
Exactly. And that's honestly what I feel like the whole concept of just having an honest relationship with reality is. Not just sometimes, it's all the time, because you don't allow yourself to go through, especially when it's like self-inflicted, you don't allow yourself to go through like self-complete destruction because you've been checking in. Like you've been seeing this pattern of like, all right, this is going the wrong way. Let me do something to change this, instead of letting it happen and not really having it the wake up call along the way. So it's like it's the perfect thing for people that just kind of go through their day to day without kind of thinking about things, and they wake up one day and they lost everything. It's like this didn't happen overnight. Like this is something that you didn't gain 40 pounds in one night. This is something that's been happening for years. It's just now, like 6 years later, and you're finally acknowledging it, or someone said something to you, and now you want to deal with it. But I'm saying if you catch it along the way by just having check-ins with yourself and having goals and different aspirations about life in general, and constantly wanting to be evolving or being a better version of yourself, then it's no way that you will allow yourself to get that far. Because once you get to that point, it's so much work to get back. And I much rather be able to help people prevent from getting that deep in the hole than to pull them out. Because I'm here to pull them out as well, but it's so much harder for them. My job is my job in general, and I can get people out of deep holes. It's just so much. It's a fight. It's an uphill battle. And something not everybody makes it throughout their journey because of how hard it is. So I like the idea of never allowing it to get to that point by constantly checking in with yourself and really being honest about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and should you be doing something else. Because if you are honest with your stuff, you really stop yourself from going down certain paths. You really could prevent yourself from doing things you don't want to do.
No, that's huge, man. And a lot of what you're doing is you're helping the people who train with you be more honest with themselves. You're keeping them accountable, and you're helping them spot reality. And then you're also helping them improve their reality and build a better reality, one that they actually want and are happy about. And I think a lot of what you're doing there, or part of what you're doing there, is helping them build the necessary habits. So for instance, like someone who's trying to lose weight, you help them build the habit of eating healthy. You help them build the habit of exercising. I'm wondering if you have any habits that you could think of that may have played a part into your success, because I think it helps people to learn from success and reverse engineer it. So like any habits you have that you think might have helped you in the past or might help you now. Like, I know you're someone who's extremely disciplined too. So like, that's just,
Yeah, I know that's tough because I feel like everything's probably a habit at this point. I guess just honestly, it's definitely the check-ins, but it's also just always having a plan and not allowing different things. Like I say this, I don't know if this is like good or bad, but this is just a kind of like part of my personality. I don't really hang on to situations, whether they're good or bad, too long. So I go through stuff in my personal life, through my professional life, and I just move on to the next thing, whether it's good or bad, because I don't want to get caught up in something that I may miss out on a moment further in life where I could be evolving and I'm still hanging on something that happened like 2 or 3 years ago. I'm constantly just working through different things and kind of like, all right, this is what it is, but this is what I'm going to do about it, and I'm going to move forward next, instead of being like, all right, this is what it is, and it hurts, and I'm just going to sit here for a while. And sometimes it's necessary because it gets you time to be able to like look at it and be like, all right, analyze it, and then move forward. But you can't have that happen every step along the way because now you're behind the ball. So I think I really handle that part well when it comes to always embracing things for whether it's good or bad. Handle it the same way. That way I can continue to just chuck along. And there's 100% things that I probably should have stopped and like celebrated or kind of like took a moment. It's like, but for me, it's like I don't really disconnect well. So I also don't reconnect well. So I just try to stay connected. So it's like, as long as I stay connected on and stay aligned and continue to move along and be better at different things I feel like I need to work on, I'll never really lose sight on like the big picture of what I'm trying to accomplish. And constantly having that goal in the back of my mind kind of keeps me. And it also a little bit, as much as it's the discipline, it's also the trauma of not being able to accomplish anything keeps me working towards something. So it's like, all right, I've accomplished so much at this point in my life, but to me, it's like I haven't accomplished anything. So there's a piece of it that's like, probably got to go through some little trauma along the way. And I guess, but that's the thing about the trauma piece of it. And I found this, and I always thought it was interesting how there's certain people that go through stuff that happened to them, no control from them. But there's people that didn't go through stuff that's created their own trauma just through like situations of not, you know what I mean, just experiencing things. Like you see it with like wealthy people. You be like, you got all the money in the world. How could you do something that dumb? But you lose the responsibility of it, or you just don't know what to do with it in a sense. So it's like I had trauma that I experienced that wasn't through my own fault, and I've learned from it. But a lot of people, if they don't have that, they usually go seek it out themselves and put themselves in situations where they have to learn from them. And it normally sets you back a bit. And that's because people don't like to learn from other people's mistakes. I'm huge on that. I think that's like one of the biggest things I've been able to take with me throughout my life. If I see you jump off that ledge, I probably know like, oh, that's probably not a good idea. So I'm not going to do that. Even if I may be able to land it, I don't know. Still, I'm not going to risk it. It doesn't seem like it's gonna be in my favor, so I'm not gonna do it. And I do that with a lot of different situations in my life. I see people do something, it doesn't work out. I'm like, oh. And it's not always the case. Some cases, I'm probably right. Like, I make a judgment call and say, but in some situations, people don't do that. Some people continue to seek out more trauma until they get enough where they can take it and be able to build from it. And I'm glad I'm kind of fortunate for my own trauma, I guess. It's not really a good thing, but I used it for what I needed to use it for, and I've been able to build myself into who I am today, and it still affects me. Like, I definitely should be celebrating myself more for just different things I've accomplished, but I have the fear of taking too much time to embrace that and acknowledge it. I'm going to miss out on other stuff that I could be accomplishing.
Yeah, and one thing I really respect, life is a narrative. It's a story we tell ourselves. We have a bunch of events happen and we connect the dots. And you had this childhood trauma, and instead of saying, woe is me, you found a way to turn it into your favor, or at least view the silver lining, and you use it to propel yourself forwards. And then a few other things I want to touch on is you were talking about how you're able to now view events from an objective point of view. You're able to step outside yourself, and instead of saying, oh, this made me feel this way, I'm sad and mad because of this, you're just able to say, okay, like, what do I got to do to improve on this? I think that that's a huge point. And then you also talked about how you don't waste or spend too much time necessarily ruminating on the past. You're always looking forwards. Again, if you're driving a car, if you're always looking at the rearview mirror, you're not going to get too far. You're going to crash.
Exactly. And yeah, definitely. I mean, in all honesty, to that piece of it, I never really acknowledged whether I like the way I am. It's just what works for me. And for a lot of people, they're going to find things that they may not, and it may be just what works for them. So it's always about just finding what works for you. And if it's allowing you to move forward in life and you're happy with that piece, then I guess embrace it. I'm not unhappy with the trauma I've been through because I know what it has allowed me to accomplish, but I also know it's not something that I could like break away from because I experienced it and it's constantly like living throughout me. So it's like, all right, every day I have the fear of that instead of pursuing new. I feel like you get more lost doing that. I don't know. It's just my personal opinion. I feel like if I had not been through stuff, I would have been through a lot more stuff in my older years of like my 20s. Like I would probably like made a lot more mistakes because I didn't experience it when I was younger. You know what I mean? And you see it amongst like just different friend groups where people may have had a different upbringing and they had like everything when they were younger, and in their 20s and their 30s they just go through it, but they're experiencing what you experienced as a child, and they just have to really bounce back from it. And I feel like it's I don't know because I'm doing it the other way, but I feel like it may be better to handle as an adult. Like as a child, it's like it's just something like, you know, as a child you soak up everything. It's just like embedded in you. As an adult, you may be able to bounce from it and move forward, depending on what it is. I don't know. I guess that's like a question for people to kind of like think about. Is it better to handle trauma as a child or an adult?
Yeah, it can definitely be tough as a child because these things happen to you and you don't necessarily have the tools to cope with them yet. And then it may have a bigger impact on you, like you were saying. Yeah, and one thing I want to talk about is how each person, like you were saying, really needs to figure out what works for them. I think that everything is contextual and what works for one person may not work for the others. So really listening to advice and being able to dissect the first principles and then from there be able to make your own decisions. So Dre says what works for him. I think that everyone should live life a little bit like a scientist. And what I mean is be willing to experiment, be willing to try things, have a hypothesis, test it and iterate. So you should be able to go and try these different things and figure out what works for you. And again, playing back to what Dre was saying about objectivity, scientists are supposed to be objective too. So again, hypothesis, test, iterate, and figure out what works for you. And you'll build the life you want a little bit more each day, as well as become more effective each day. And if you could just keep focusing on iterating and fine-tuning your process and your vision of the life you want, you're going to build up massive momentum and get closer each day.
For real, and that's like serious. I like the way you put it in the science form, but I like to use it. I would say I love perspective. Like I love hearing different perspectives from people because it gives me other ways of thinking. And a lot of times people are just closed minded. They think their way is the right way. They never want to hear others' perspectives. They kind of miss out on learning more about life and different journeys on how people dealt with different things because there's so many different ways to experience different things from different viewpoints. So that's why I'm always, I guess, I don't really, when you take the emotional piece out of different things, you only think about, all right, forget who's right or wrong. What actually makes sense? So like, what perspectives actually make sense? So when you start dealing with people and you're like, even in relationships, you have arguments. I try not to have arguments based on feelings and more so like, all right, is like who's right or wrong in this perspective? Like what, like you trying to get me to understand X, Y, or Z. All right, I don't understand it. Explain it. Oh, I get it now. End of it. That's the end. And that's like the most productive argument you can have with someone instead of this made me feel this way. I was like, all right, yeah, but it only made you feel this way because it was right. It's like, why are we focusing on how it made you feel and more so about, all right, did it make sense? Is it actually related to what we're talking about? Or like, is it productive? Like whatever it is, like acknowledge it for what it is. Like the honest of the reality piece of it. It's like, acknowledge it. So now we can actually deal with the problem and not how you feel, because if we deal with how you feel is this way now, tomorrow that may change. So it's like, why did we work on that if it's different tomorrow? We didn't get to the actual root of what the problem was.
Yeah, emotions are fleeting. Address the problem at hand. And it relates to what you were saying about how you try to learn from other people's mistakes. You can also learn from other people's perspectives. So each perspective is just a new point of view. And then like we were saying earlier, you can take what serves you, use it, and discard the rest. So always entertain other people's perspectives and try to use them to improve, as well as try to seek out new perspectives, because that's going to help educate you on your blind spots and also on the other person's experience. This person has lived an entire life that helped form their perspectives, so they have unique experiences that you don't. There's at least a small chance that they're going to have an opinion or feedback that may help you.
Exactly. And the greatest thing, and we can kind of wrap it up, is to have this perspective. It applies to everything, and I mean, obviously, I'm a fitness coach, so I relate everything back to that. But this goes with fitness goals, financial goals, profession goals, like relationship, anything you have that you want to work towards. It fit the narrative about being honest in all those situations, so you can kind of just take it and kind of use it for all those things instead of, it's not just a fitness thing.
No, that's huge, man. Like you said, I think it really comes down to being honest with yourself, having an honest view of reality, having others help keep you accountable and you keep yourself accountable. And then once you face life in the mirror, be okay facing that pain and then just view it objectively. Take a step from here and just say, what's the next small step I could take to build the life I want? And before you know it, you're going to get there. Because like Dre was saying, non-action is also action. If you just sit back and you don't work towards the life you want, if you don't decide what life you want to live, others are going to decide for you. And I bet when you look back 10 or 20 years from now, you're not going to be as happy as if you had decided the life you want to live.
100%. And honestly, it's just knowing the truth is everything. Like you can't build a future. There's people that build futures on lies. I'll take that back. I'll take that back. But you can't build yourself. Like there's no personal growth without you being honest about who you are right now. And however you got to figure that out, that's kind of usually up to you. But if you just seek that journey of finding the truth about your situation on all aspects of life, personal, financial, fitness, then you'll always be taking steps in the right direction.
That's huge, man. Yeah, I think that's a great place to start to wrap it up. Mm-hmm. I want to ask any parting advice for episode 1 for the listeners. I know we got a lot more wisdom coming towards them, but any last minute words?
No. I guess it just honestly, after you hear the episode, just think about where you are in life right now. Think about things that you want to do, and think about, have you been doing things that will help you be able to accomplish those things. If you haven't, kind of find out what could you be doing differently. Like, how could you move in a way that could be pushing you towards those things, and start working towards it from there.
Yeah. And last question, if anyone wants to get in touch with you or see more of what you're doing, is there any place that they should check out, whether it's for your fitness stuff or to talk about their view of reality?
Well, I'm expecting most people that are going to be listening are going to already know me from like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, YouTube. But my Instagram is Every Goddamn Dre. TikTok's Every Goddamn Dre. YouTube's Adriell Mayes. Website, kettlebellfunctionaltraining.com. And you can find me on all those places.
I love it. Hey, it was awesome talking to you, Dre. This was super fun. Can't wait to do it again.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode and got some value from it. If you want to hear more content on decision making, thriving in uncertainty, eliminating ambiguity, and regret minimization, as well as other similar topics, feel free to check out my YouTube channel and my website, letsgetreckless.com. And definitely reach out and let me know what you thought about this episode. Improving the show is a continuous process, and your feedback helps me make this better over time and focus more on the content that's most helpful for you. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.